Hi, this is a webinar on how to create a custom transcript using the Reports feature in the ThinkWave system. Building a custom report can be complex with all the variables you can utilize, but if you follow along in this video, it'll start to make more sense as the transcript starts to take shape. First, we'll go to the Reports tab and click on the Custom Reports link. The Reports function tool is very customizable. You can customize every detail in the report. One of the main tools for customizing the report is the layout. This allows you to decide how you want the report to be laid out. The report is divided into 12 visual segments, both horizontally and vertically. Each segment has up to 12 in both directions. I'll get into more detail on that in a second. Another tool is widgets, which are the content that exists within each segment of the report. I'll get into more detail on the creation and use of widgets in a second. Here we have the title of your custom report. We'll call it Transcript. In here you can decide to organize either one student per page, which is the most common, or you can select to have it be a single multi-page report. Then here you can decide if you want the report to be displayed in either portrait or landscape. Here you can customize the rows and cells that make up the report. The rows determine the vertical layout of the report, where the cells make up the horizontal layout of the report. Here you can select how many of the pages the row will make up. For instance, you can create a header which would take up 4/12 of the page. You can customize how many cells you want in that first row. Remember that the size of the combined cells will have to add up to 12. So for the header, we'll want to create its own widget, so we'll need one cell. There are 2 cells currently, so delete the second cell and select 12 for the cell range. Now that you have the layout of the cells, it's time to add some widgets. To create a widget, click the Widget subtab at the top. Here you can enter the name, and we'll create the widget for the header. And here you select the widget type. You have a choice between table, text, image, column, row, etc. We only need one row, so we'll select row. Then here you select where you want to save the widget to. Then click Save. We are going to need 3 widgets, one for the school's logo, then the school address, and finally the date. So click Add Widget at the right. Then select 2 for width of the logo. Then 6 for the address, and 4 for the date. The school's logo is a default widget, so you can just select that from the pull-down menu here. For the school's address and date, we'll have to create that. So in the meantime, select blank cell for both and click Save. Now select Add Widget at the top. Name this Address and select Table so that we have a couple rows. You can completely customize this widget, and at the bottom, there's samples of the available functions that you can copy and paste in the lines. Since we're creating a widget to display the school's address, we'll need to tell the widget which line shows which aspect of the address. First, you decide how many columns and how many rows you want to have here. Since a standard address has about 4 lines and no columns, we'll enter 1 column and 4 rows, then click Save and refresh it. You also have the option to skip rows, the default style, alignment, etc. Now we will enter the information for the contents. You can simply type in the address directly, or if you want a more automated system, you can use the merge functions. The merge function will pull the address from the default address in the setup menu, so you only have one place to enter the address. The merge functions allows you to customize any aspect of the reports. Building off basic commands, you can modify most of the merge functions to display what you want. At the bottom of every widget screen, there's instructions for the merge functions, with details on how to modify them further. As you can see, there's definitions for the modifiers. Then below, there's a list of most of the merge fields you'll ever need. The basic command is on the left, then the description, then the variables that allow you to modify them, and finally the samples here on the right. You can use the samples to copy and paste into the merge fields, while continuing to modify them further. This will make more sense as we use them to build the report. Now let's use the first merge function. For this, let's scroll down and use one of the pre-created command lines. For the first line, let's use the school's name. Copy and select the command for the school and then paste it into the first line. The drop-down menus to the right of the cells allow you to further customize the look of each line. The first one allows you to choose the pre-selected font size. This next one allows you to select the darkness and shade of the font. And finally, the third menu allows you to select the justification of the font, right, left, etc. We'll leave those alone for now, and when we start previewing the widget, we can fine-tune each line for how we would like them to look. Now for the second line, let's scroll down and copy and paste the address line. And so on for each line. Then click Save. Now let's go back to the header widget from the menu on the left. Now for the second cell, we'll select the new address widget and click Save. Now that we have some widgets in the header, let's add the header widget to the main transcript. To do this, go back to the layout, and for the header row, add the new widget from the pull-down menu. Then click Save. Now let's see how they will display. I find that since customizing reports can take a lot of tweaking back and forth, having another tab open to the Custom Reports tab in ThinkWave allows you to see the changes that you make very quickly. There's a preview button at the top right here, but that only previews the widget on its own. So if you want to see the report as a whole, it's best to generate a report each time. So let's open another tab in the browser to the ThinkWave system, and then go to the Reports tab, and under Custom Reports, click Demo Report. Then select a student and click Generate. As you can see, the logo looks fine, but the school's name should be a little larger, and the address isn't displaying quite right. So let's go back to the School Address Widget tab, and for the school's name, select Heading 1 for the font format, then click Save. Now go back to the report preview, and click on Customize this report. Select a student and click Generate again. And now you can see the school name is now too large compared to the rest of the address, and there's a blank space for address 2, since there's no data for that line. Go back to the widget edit and underneath the header widget on the left-hand side. Change the school address to H2, remove the address line 2 since it's not needed here. Alternately, you can also select Skip Rows, then select Skip Row if all merge fields are blank. Then move up the address lines, and since there's an extra line, let's add the school phone number. At this point, you may be starting to notice a pattern in the merge function command lines. You can alter or copy the lines at any time to quickly customize them further. There's a lot of information about customizing the merge functions in the bottom here. Once you made all the changes, click Save and go back to the preview. Now the address is displaying fine, but it's still a little too high. So let's go back to the layout and add some padding to the address line. Let's say 2. Now go back and check it. And now it's starting to look right. Since the Reports tool is so customizable, it can take time to tweak it to modify it, so that you get it just the way you want it. I find it's easier to think of it like a puzzle, constantly having to try pieces and modify them and going back and forth. It can be work, but in the end, you're rewarded with a stellar-looking custom report. Now back to the header widget, and let's put the date for the transcript. For the third cell, we'll need to create another widget for the date. Click Add Widget, and we'll call this Transcript Date. We'll only need one column and one row. For this, we'll have to use the merge function's modifiers. So let's go down and find the date options. We'll select User Date, and on the right there are the modifiers. There's one for Date Select. Copy and paste that into the cell. And inside the brackets, after the user date, type a pipe, the vertical bar that you get from Shift// on your keyboard. Then type date _SEL, then a colon, and select _, print underscore date, all within the brackets. The detailed instructions on the merge function modifiers are at the bottom of the page here. Once you have that entered, click Save, then go back to the header widget, and for cell 3, select New Transcript Date widget we had just created, then click Save. Then go back and check the preview. Now there's a new Select Print Date window at the Transcript Generate screen. Select the date and the student and click Generate. As you can see, the date you selected now appears at the right of the screen. You can further modify the look until you get it to just the way you want it. Now we're going to go back to the Layout page and create the main body of the transcript. For this, we're going to want to have 2 columns, where the grades will be displayed on the left side of the body, then continue on the right column. To do this, we're going to create a new row. Below the header, click Add Row. We'll have it take up, say, 8/12 of the page, so we can have a signature space at the bottom of the page. Any of this can be modified at any time. Since we want to have 2 columns, we'll create 2 cells. For this first cell, we'll put a width of 6. Then we'll add a cell and give it a width of 6 as well. Then click Save. Now we'll put the grades in the first cell. And it'll continue to the second cell, so we want the second cell to have an overflow from the previous cell. You can select that from the pull-down window. As you can see here, there's an ID code for each cell. Enter the ID code from the first cell into the window here in the second cell. And now any overflow data will automatically be added to the second cell. Then click Save. Now we need to create widgets to tell it what to display. For the transcript like this, we'll typically want to display the name of the course, the grade the student got, and the credits that the student earned. Go to the top and go to the Widget subtab, then click Add Widget. We'll call this Class Cycler, and select Class Widget. This will also be used for a lot of report cards. Leave the settings in the default for now and click Save. Now we will have to tell the Class Cycler what to display. Now we will need another widget, so click on Add Widget. Let's call it Grades Row. And for this one, we'll use a table. Now down here in the first cell, we're going to want it to have the name of the class, then the grades that the student got, and the third row will be the credits earned. To add this information, we're going to want to use the merge functions again. So go down here, and there's a command for the class. Then for final grade, it's simply called final grade. And then finally for the credits, we'll go down here and copy the command for the credits earned. And since we only need 1 row, we'll need to change the number of rows here to 1. Then click Save. Now we'll go back to the Class Cycler widget, and at the bottom, select the Grades row here. Now we're going to need a term widget that cycles through every term that a student has. We'll call this Term Cycler and select the term widget for the widget type. And this will cycle through all the terms for a student. Since we'll want to have all the terms a student has, we'll select Transcript terms, all terms in student's academic history for a term scope. Now here we have the ability to display the transfer history. We can choose not to show the transfer history, show it at the beginning, which would be the most common, or we can display it at the end, or we could show only the transfer history. And here you filter by grade level, for instance, if you don't want to show anything earlier than 9th grade, or tag terms to include or not include. We'll leave these at the default for now. Here at the bottom, we'll have it display the Class Cycler. When you're done, click Save. The constant tweaking here allows you to fully customize without worrying about making mistakes, because you can always go back and fix it. Now go back to the layout and add the term cycler to the first cell of the main body, then click Save. Let's take a look at how it displays. As you can see, now it's displaying the classes, grades, and credits. But it looks jumbled together, and there's no space between the years, and it looks a little confusing. So let's go back and customize the way it displays to make it look a bit nicer and to make the information a bit clearer. Let's go back to the term cycler. For instance, if you want a little space above the terms to separate them out, you'll want to add two widgets at the bottom. Then for the first widget, choose Normal Horizontal Rule. Then the second would be half space, and finally the third would be the class cycler. Now let's go back and check how it displays. As you can see now, there's a thin line between the space that separates each term. Now it's looking a little cleaner. But we could still use a header for each term that says class, grade, and credits. So let's go back and create another table widget. This will act as a term header. We'll call it Term Grades Header and click Save. For this first cell, we'll want the name of the term. So go down and find the merge function for the name of the term here. Then for the other two, we can just type in what we want the header to say, such as grade and credit. And we can make it stand out a bit more by using the inverse text, which is white. You select that here. And here you'll need a shade for the background, such as medium dark shade. And finally, we'll need one row, so you can change that at the top. Now save. And go back to the term cycler widget, and instead of normal horizontal rule, let's put in the new header that we just created. Click Save, and let's check the preview. There's still a few things to tweak, like the first semester is a little too close to the left, so we'll need a little padding here. Let's go back and fix that. Let's go back to the header row. Let's add a little padding to the left and see how that looks. Okay, now it's starting to look a little cleaner. But we're going to want to add a little padding to the grades now, so let's do that. Now this is how it works with the Reports tool. You'll need to go back and forth constantly tweaking it to get it so it's just the way that you want it to look. But with a little patience and work, you can get the reports to look exactly the way you want them to. Now let's break up the two columns so that it's not one solid line. Go back to the layout, and here for the column 2, let's put a little padding on the right. And for this one, let's put a little padding on the left. Now let's see how that looks. Now it lines up. Now let's say that you want to include the total credits earned with each term. Let's add the widget for that. We'll call it Total Credits for Term and make it a table. We only need one row for this. And here in the second cell, type Total Credits and align it to the right. Then here you will need a merge function. So let's go down and find where we can display the total credits earned. And here we have a function for credits earned. We'll probably want a little space too, so add some padding at the top. And now let's add that to the term cycler. We're going to want this above the single space at the bottom, so add a new widget and add the total credits widget here. And let's see how that looks. And now we have the total credits for each term, but it's a little crowded, so let's add a little right padding since it's right justified. That looks much better. Since most transcripts will have a total credits and GPA at the end, let's add that now. To do that, we're going to have to go back and create a column widget to organize the widgets in. So click Add Widget, and we'll call this Transcript Body Column. Then select Column and save. And now, with this, we can stack the widgets from top to bottom. And what we're going to need is the term cycler on top, with the total credits on the bottom. But first, we'll need to create the total credits widget. Let's call it Total Credits and Overall GPA, and make it a table. We're only going to need 2 columns and 2 rows. But remember, the columns still have to add up to 12. So let's make the first one 4 and the second one 8. Now for the first cell, we'll call it Total Credits. And the one below it we'll call Overall GPA. Now let's find the merge functions for each one. For the first one, here it is, Credits Earned Cumulative. And for the GPA, here GPA Cumulative. And click Save. Now let's go back to the column. We'll want this to go at the end, so we'll have the term cycler first, then the total credits and overall GPA widget. And now we have to go back to the layout and replace the term cycler with the column that we just created. Now let's see how it looks. And there's the cumulative credits and the GPA at the bottom, by adding all the terms. Now let's say that we want to add some information from a custom field after the credits and GPA, such as degree earned. Let's add a new table widget, degree earned. We'll only need 1 row and 2 columns. Let's make the second column an 1/8 width. For the first cell, we'll type in degree earned. And for the second column, we'll need to put in a custom merge field. This will come from a custom field in the Students tab. So here we have custom field student. There's also a custom field class if the information is relevant to the class as a whole. Let's copy the modifier example, and we'll customize it for our use. And here we'll replace date_of_birth with degree_earned. Now click Save and go back to the transcript body column. And add a widget and select the newly created widget for degree earned. Now we'll go to the reports generator. And now there's a new pull-down menu for degree earned, but we'll still have to create a custom field for the degree earned. To do this, go to the Student tab and at the top right, select Customize and New Custom Field. Name it Degree Earned, which applies to all students, and select Save. We go into more detail on creating custom fields in another video. Now that it's created, enter the relevant information that would be added, such as high school diploma. Now go back to creating a custom transcript. And from the new pull-down menu, select Degree Earned, then click Generate. Now, as you can see underneath the overall GPA, there's a new field for degree earned. Now let's say that we see something like this percent grade here that is rounded to 4 digits, and we want it to only round to 1 digit. So let's go back to the Grades row widget, and we can modify the different commands. So for final grade, let's go down here and see the different modifiers. There's a sample here on the right of how it's used. So for this case, we'll want to round to 1 digit. So let's copy the command modifier here where it says round:0, and make sure you include the pipe. Then we'll take it back to the Final Grades tab, and add it to the end of the command line like this, while replacing the 0 with a 1. Click Save and let's see how it looks. And there we are, the percent is now rounded to 1 digit. Now that the body of the transcript is done, let's add a principal signature line at the bottom here. Let's go back to the layout and add New Row. We already reserved 2/12 of the page. We will need the cell to be the full width. For now, it will be a blank cell. Click Save and let's create a new widget to put in it. We'll call the widget Principal Signature and make it a table. Let's make it 1 column and 1 row. Then type in Principal Signature, : and put in a line like this. Align it to the center and click Save. Now let's go back to the layout and add it to the bottom. And let's see how it looks. We can see it here, but now it needs a little more padding to give it more room. And let's go back and look at it. Now that looks good. One last thing, sometimes the transcript will overflow to more than one page. So for that instance, we can go back to the layout and add another row. We can make this dynamic to make it go from page to page. Then select Omit Row if there's no data. Then the cell would be the overflow from the transcript body column. But you'll want to take it from the overflow column so that it would continue smoothly. And once you're done, you can publish it to your library so that it's available at any time. A few other customizations that you can make: if you go back to the reports page, you can change the scaling to make it larger. And you can change the font here. And this is how you'd create a custom transcript report using the reports tool in the ThinkWave system. Thanks for watching.